Marvel Rivals has just come out and everyone wants to know who is the best of the best for every single role. And I'm here to give you my opinion on who exactly these characters are, while also providing some brief tips and tricks in order to get the most out of these characters while using them. On top of that, I'm not just going to be providing just one character for each designated role in the game, but two, just in case someone snipes them on your team, or if the playstyle of the first character just isn't for you. That way, you're always able to round out your team comp appropriately for whatever role your team still needs. So I'm sure there'll be a pick here for everyone, regardless of playstyle, that's considered really good at the launch of the game. So without further ado, let's get into the top characters for every role on launch for Marvel Rivals. First on up, let's get into what everyone wants to play, being the Duelists, also known as the DPSs of the game. We are going to list two characters that I believe are the creme de la creme when it comes to damage output, mobility, and survivability. That way you can keep your streaks going as long as possible. The first of the two Duelists actually might be one that a lot of people aren't playing, if not maybe just trying him once and then kind of falling off of him, which in my opinion is Wolverine. He is 110% my favorite character right now. And I think his abilities are really well done and are pretty balanced in my opinion as well when it comes to his cooldowns. Because a lot of people are only trying him once or twice and kind of getting off of him, I also think he's due for a buff sometime in the near future. I currently consider Wolverine as a great backline diver and assassin who can also take down some of these frontline tanks if he has to. He's able to do all of this because of his healing factor, rage stacking, and fast flurry of hits with berserker claws. I'm not going to be too in-depth with his kit as this isn't a Wolverine focused video, which if you guys want to see something like that, let me know that in the comment section down below. But the key to using him is making sure that even if you don't hit and take someone with you when you're using Feral Leap, that at least you get into position to start wailing on someone right when you land. One main reason for this is because landing autos consistently builds up your rage passive, which is essential to taking down enemies quickly while also weaving in your undying animal ability in between the flurry of hits to make sure you're taking as minimal damage as possible while they inevitably try to fight you back. Even if they're able to get some really good hits back, land headshots on you, or have a teammate assisting against you, you should still be in the clear if you built up your rage with basic attacks properly. And even if you get into a bad situation, you essentially have a get out of jail free card with your regenerative healing factor passive, that when you get to 0 HP, you get rid of all debuffs, get really good temporary health that turns into a full on heal, that gets its cooldown a really big reduction if you're a part of kills or assists on enemy champions. Not to mention, if you don't need it for a gap closer since it doesn't do too much damage, you could always save his ability Vicious Rampage for an escape to help in getting away from anything that's too dangerous. Overall, learning him in and out and with a bit of practice and knowing how his healing procs, how fast it takes to fully build rage, along with learning good flank routes and saving an ability for a quick escape, makes Wolverine just a cut above the rest in my opinion when it comes to the Duelist category. But if being able to land autos is one of your struggles and not wanting to get close is one of your playstyles, I have you covered with our other top DPS. She has an insanely good getaway ability, a full-on stun, and AoE proccing abilities to be able to handle group damage as well. I'm talking about none other than Scarlet Witch. I went against one Scarlet Witch who completely oppressed my entire team, and then I finally looked into her kit and realized how this was possible. Let me just say this. You can literally aim around a person, not actually land any autos because you can just aim around them and hit them with your autos. Need I really say more? Yes, her damage is considerably lower, and with team comps trending more towards the sustained death ball group with people like Venom and Mantis, I could see Scarlet Witch falling out of favor, but in terms of pump stomping and maybe lower ranks, she is definitely going to be someone to watch out for. And even though her damage is considerably lower, the tick on her autos is really fast in my opinion. Especially when you take into account that you don't actually even need to actually aim her autos all that correctly, and she has no actual munitions on her autos, meaning you can essentially just hold the right trigger, walk around, and kind of aim at the enemy, and you're still able to hit them. while also having pretty good range to hit someone from as well. By the way, all of this is just from her autos. We haven't even touched her actual abilities yet. Her ultimate, don't even get me started, is just an AoE nuke. So if you're ever contesting on a point, or there's a really good choke point everyone is fighting in, good luck. As if she's in range, it's pretty much a one-shot unless you're a tank, but almost everyone can hit an ulti like this, so let's move on to her actual abilities. My favorite regular ability of hers is Dark Seal. It is really missable if people aren't paying attention, or if you're in the middle of a really big team fight. That is, until you actually proc it. When you first set it out, it's a small floating orb on the field, and then after hitting its designated button again, it turns into an AoE orb that will stun twice before going away while also doing damage with the stuns. This is your true setup for combos, as right after, you want to go ahead and hit your Chaos Infused Chthonian Bursts. These are essentially missiles that she fires that blow up on impact and deal AoE damage, which if you can't actually hit your enemy with this, you can just look at the ground that the enemy is around and the AoE will still hit the opponent. On top of this, they are what use the 4 Chaos Emblems under your aiming reticle. In order to refuel it, you have to quote unquote hit basic attacks, which fill these meters back up really fast, essentially making sure that your Chthonian bursts are always available. And if the fight somehow still isn't going your way with all that going for you, her last real ability is turning into a mystic projection that allows you to fly away from people without fly, that also gives you good movement speed, and can stack up to 2 uses at a time, with a relatively short cooldown. All I'm saying is, I see a nerf in Scarlet Witch's future. Next on up, let's move on to the tanks in the game, being Vanguards. My pick for the best Vanguard at the moment is actually Venom. With high mobility, good damage from autos, a decent displacement ability, while also having a huge temporary health lifesaver, he is exactly what I like in terms of gameplay and frontline capability. A usual combo you'll want to go in with if you want to frontline is get to the high ground and use Frenzied Arrival onto their carries and healers so you can displace them for a bit. Once that's done, you'll usually be the main target, in which you want to make sure to use Cellular Corrosion to keep enemies by you, which slows them and then does damage if they are still in range, and is a good way to have damage dealers scramble. All of this while autoing when you can in between should have some of their squishier heroes pretty low. Ending it off with an ulti is optimal if you have it, as it also gives you temporary health based on the damage you do, but if not, once you take your share of the damage, make sure to use your Symbiotic Resilience to get a major pool of temporary health, and swing out of combat if you're getting way too low or don't have a healer. If the temp health is about to run out, it is a great way to stay alive at the end of it all. Doing all of this while all of your allies are also doing their jobs, either DPSing down the enemies, having someone flank while you do this, or having healers at your own back, makes all of this the more frustrating for the enemy team while you do considerable damage. And since you're doing this, you're aggroing all the enemy's attention on you since you're right in their face, you're having all the enemy backlines scramble away from you since you're tethering them and slowing them, and they don't want to take more unnecessary damage than they have to. You're able to do all of this while drawing everyone's attention, and that lets your healers and DPSs push up while you're going ahead and diving into their backline. Next on up, another character I consider a top tier tank is actually Bruce Banner, or the Hulk. He sort of reminds me of Diva from his Hulk and Banner mechanic, as when you take fatal damage with the Hulk, you turn into Banner, essentially getting a second life and chance to turn back into the Hulk if you build up enough Gamma. Hulk having a second chance and an insane and long ultimate form for 10 seconds where it buffs his damage considerably, and basically having a fatality built in, which by the way, here's my reaction to seeing it for the first time and firsthand. I'm coming to help! I'm coming to help you, Vaughn! Oh, he beat!
Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god.
What the fuck is that?
It was stomping your shit up!
He beat the shit out of me! Means with the Hulk, you want to be right up in their faces where building up Gamma is key. So make sure to start off every back and forth with Indestructible Guard for you and your allies, which also helps absorb some damage. After that, jumping into the enemy's faces or jumping back and forth being a nuisance with Incredible Leap is also a good move. Make sure to land some autos and gamma bursts while jumping back and forth in order to build up more gamma as well. A mechanic to keep in mind with the Hulk is if there is someone on the enemy team healing a ton, a frontliner getting in the way of diving the backline, or a duelist flanking your backline, a good way to deal with them is using radioactive lockdown. What radioactive lockdown does is stun them but have them immune to everything but your autos or gamma burst ability until time is up. Then once the timer is over, make sure to wail on them with everything you have, or if they're a tank, continue to dive the backline and ignore them in order to take over the fight. His abilities get more damage as you get into your ulti, which lasts 10 seconds, which also gives you the Hulk Smash ability I showcased earlier, which almost instantly kills squishier enemies while heavily wounding others. This, along with his massive health pool and Bruce Banner's second life, makes him a great frontliner with options to frontline, stay back and play a more passive supporting role until the fight starts, or even full-on dive into the backline and wreak havoc on enemy squishies. Next on up, and lastly in terms of roles in the game, we have the top 2 supports or strategists. And when it comes to strategists, all I have to say is sustain wins games. They are almost mandatory at this stage in the game due to their insane sustain they provide to their entire team and themselves. And in my opinion, they legitimately might be the best role in the game by far. First on up is Mantis, who might literally be the best character in the game. Mantis has incredible abilities, insane healing options, self-sustain, and decent damage, all while also being able to take enemies completely out of the fight for a few moments. And all of these are reason why I consider her the best in class when it comes to the strategists in this game. For me, Mantis's first order of business should always be putting a healing flower on your front liner. This gives them slight healing over time, and thanks to her passive means that she will be healed in the same way as well. If you see someone about to try and make a play, or someone who has their ultimate up, always try to provide them with inspiration, as this will give them a damage boost, making their job all the more easier. In this case, sedating and sleeping their frontline tank or healer after stimming your DPS would be best in order to make sure that they can make the play they're trying to do as well. You will have to be careful though, as being a healer makes you a clear mark for the frontliner diving in or any damage dealers trying to flank. So you'll want to keep a sedation cooldown handy in case someone tries to dive you, so I suggest you use that sedation very sparingly. Or when you see a really good play about to be made on either side, you can stun an enemy out of their actual ulti, or you can buff your own ally and then stun someone that might get in his ulti's way. Along with this, sprinkling in auto attacks and aiming for the head is a must when life orbs are all used up, as critical auto attacks replenish life orbs faster. Overall, you'll be wanting to play in the backline, making sure your frontliner is always topped off on health if possible, while also making sure your damage dealers are doing okay, or buffing them when an opportunity presents itself. Keeping an eye out for a flanker to sedate them when trying to go for you or a main carry is also a very good play that you could make, in order to make sure your team comes up with the win. Then last but definitely not least, we have Jeff the Landshark, a sleeper support character in my opinion, who can make plays as much as any other carry could. I'm sure you've seen the clips of people swallowing entire teams with his ulti and shooting them off the map, so I won't bother with reviewing that tech. But even without that ulti play, Jeff surprisingly does a lot of damage and displacement as a support as well. With Jeff, you'll want to make sure that you stay in the back or play in an off angle as you spam Joyful Splash and healing bubbles on your allies as they trade blows with opponents. But once in a while, make sure to let loose some Aqua Burst as they do AoE splash damage to enemies and does a good bit of damage. If you ever find yourself flanked or getting dove by the front line, put some healing bubbles on you and your allies' feet, as collecting the bubbles pushes back enemies, while letting loose some Aqua Burst in between, that way you can get some damage off to make them want to back off. If the situation gets too bad and you want to make a quick getaway, make sure to use hide and seek, which makes it a lot harder for them to hit you, as they can only target your fin while underground. And you can scale walls at your boosted speed while underground, making sure you can even reposition the high ground if you need to. While all of this is happening, it gives your bubbles a chance to come off of cooldown to heal you and knock enemies away who may have chased you. That opens up a chance for you to outplay any squishy backline that's trying to dive you. Overall though, that is all of the characters I currently perceive at the top of the meta for all of the roles on launch week of Marvel Rivals. Through finding new tech with characters, full-on meta teams bound to be developed by players, and patches and updates coming to the game, I'm sure the top characters will come and go. I also implore you to experiment, find what characters suit you and your playstyle, because even if they aren't considered by everyone to be the best, maybe they end up being the best for you, and they can even be your sleeper pick when it comes to something like ranked. If you think I missed out on a character that you think should have made the top 2 list for every role-defining heroes and villains, make sure to list them down below. Also, if you're interested in full-on guides for characters, let me know which ones I should do as well. Lastly, I just wanted to say thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. If you enjoyed or found it entertaining, make sure to scroll down and make that like button glow so we can reach our like goal of 25 likes for this video. While you're down there, consider subscribing as we'll be covering Marvel Rivals as updates come out, other AAA games throughout the year, hilarious content, and more. As always, your support through your viewership, liking, and subscribing is always greatly appreciated and helps me out tremendously against the multi-dimensional threat that is the YouTube algorithm. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to catch you guys next time. Peace!